So, Della, there are a number of organisations who have unfortunately had to put a hiring freeze on at the moment. Should these organisations be looking at their existing employees to fill the roles that they still need to fill?
Yeah, I think this is a really important one, and it's something that's becoming, more and more important when we think about disruption to the world of work. So the fourth industrial revolution is very much here. So we need to be thinking about, well, what are the roles of the future and how we fill those. And I think it's always a good idea to look within. It's becoming more and more important to really, assess your workforce and know about the talent that you have already. And by that, I mean, it's kind of looking at the attributes, looking at the behaviors that will make your employees future ready. So, I mean, we're seeing it more and more within the last weeks, but are they adaptable? Can they learn? Can they adapt to new ways of working? Are they, curious enough and able to learn in terms of new skills that may be required? And so in terms of new roles where companies may traditionally have looked externally, absolutely. Look internally, know the talent that you have at your disposal now.
What kind of assessments are there for you to measure these types of new skills and identify the people who can easily change and adapt to different roles?
I think a lot of the time we default to skills because, we think of future roles and we think of tech talent or we think of coding ability, whereas actually those skills tend to have quite a short half-life. So what we need to be looking at are behaviors, because while skills they're not so skills are temporary, but behaviors are enduring. So we would tend to look at a behavioral assessment, so looking at your work styles, and in particular looking at personality traits like curiosity, learnability, and agility. So do you have a workforce? Do you have individuals who are adaptable to change, who can adapt to change?
And Della, how do you identify potential in employees that you might look to move up into a leadership or managerial role?
So I think our definition of high potential needs to change. It's something that if we're going to focus on behaviors, it needs to be something that is far more inclusive and doesn't just rely on experience. I think, the days of sitting in one role for 10 years and then automatically becoming partner, it's just not really, it's not really the way things are going. So I think our definition of high potential needs to be far more based on behaviors that make people high potential. So taking a more data-led view, using assessments to really identify the behaviors of your people who will be high potentials. I think traditionally we have relied on subjective data or just on performance metrics. And I think we're now seeing a shift towards looking at potential in a different way.
And Della, what do we need from the leaders of the future?
So I think leadership is something that we have seen a real change in recent years. I think traditionally a leader was the subject matter expert, but now what we have identified as good leadership for the future, especially in times of change, is for leaders to be change agents, to have the humility to facilitate the expertise around them more so than needing to be that subject matter expert themselves. And it's harnessing technology to drive innovation forward. I think what we are seeing, especially in the last few weeks, is that this type of leadership is becoming more and more important, because more than ever we've needed to have advocates of technology, advocates of change, rather than just kind of waiting for this to blow over. We need to have leaders who have that kind of humility to know these are the people who know how best to proceed, and surrounding themselves, facilitating those discussions and making those decisions.
Are there any specific assessments that you can use to look at different behaviours that you have internally that you could move to change to that different role that you've currently got a hiring freeze on?
So we have what we call a Pathfinder solution. So this takes a two-step approach to look at what it is that makes the roles that you're trying to fill unique, what it takes to be successful in those roles, and then assessing your current workforce to be able to figure out who within your current workforce would be best placed to then shift into these roles. Now that might mean that there might be an element of upskilling or reskilling, but with our Pathfinder tool, we can tell, well, actually, you know, within your workforce, who has the propensity to be most suitable to learning these new skills, to having the right mindset and right behaviors to be successful in these new roles.